Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I am your host, SchuZ Schumaker. It is a late night edition of the SchuZ Show, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be a special show. So let's hop right into it today. I'm going to give you guys a quick outline of what we got planned for tonight. First and foremost, a couple of new features are going to be on the show now. First and foremost, we have a new poll coming up. Let me pull it up for you guys real quick so that you guys can see it on your screen. Right up here, you guys can go in the comment section of the chat and put hashtag for any of these different options. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you guys real quickly. There we go. Let's get right to it. There we are. You guys can go and vote whoever was the top performer of this past weekend. Obviously, lots of options. I'll be breaking a lot of those down. Put that in the chat. Who do you guys have as the best performer of this past weekend? We currently have 2 votes right now. One looks like it's for Floyd Schofield Jr., the other for Christian Mbilli. Make sure you go let me know you guys' thoughts as I break down the remainder of today's show. With that being said, it's going to be right in the bottom of the screen. You guys can go check that out as the poll continues throughout the remainder of today's show. The second portion I want to get into, there also will be live chats now. If you guys want to have any comments or concerns or whatever the question or the case may be, make sure to go put that in the chat, and I'll be addressing each and every single one of those topics throughout the duration of today's show. So make sure to let me know what you guys think about stuff in the chat, and I'll be addressing that as we go throughout the remainder of today's show. With that being said, though, lots of fights went down this weekend. I've got 5 main ones that I want to break down. Those 5 ones will be Deontay Wilder, Christian Mbilli, Jake Paul, Zurdo Ramirez, and last but most certainly not least, what Floyd Schofield Jr. did to Tevin Farmer in the first round. Those 5 will be broken down in completeness throughout the duration of the show. But let's get right into it. First and foremost, I wrapped up the show on Friday, and I talked about the fact that, listen, I'm going to get off the air because Deontay Wilder is making his return. And I'll give you guys my thoughts. I always said this, no matter what happens in that ring on Friday, I'm not going to come back on the show and say Deontay Wilder is back. That would be foolish of me. We know the guy that Deontay Wilder was fighting. His name's Tyrell Herndon. He was not going to be a threat. He was clearly picked out and chosen to be specifically fine-tuned for Deontay Wilder to have an easy win. It was a cherry-picked fight. We all know that. There was never going to be a threat that Deontay Wilder lost that fight. So what I was looking for was, can Deontay Wilder go out there, get some rounds underneath his belt after he took over a year out of the ring? Can he just get himself some confidence back? And has he improved on anything? Which is a high stakes because all he's ever done has been able to utilize his massive arm, his right hand. That's all we've ever seen. So was he able to incorporate any form of technique with his new training group? And when I look back on that fight, I did see some, albeit very minor, improvements. I feel like the patience was solid, and he utilized his jab quite well throughout the duration of that fight. Now, as I said, it was not a dominant performance in the sense of, okay, this was a highlight reel, one of the best Wilder KOs ever. He did get the TKO, but let's be honest. He had Herndon exactly where he wanted him. One of those iconic KOs was going to happen. It was only a matter of time. Only thing that was mitigating the situation was the fact that, listen, Deontay Wilder was doing his job. Herndon decided not to fight any longer. And I don't necessarily blame him. He was getting beaten. But if he would have been able to stay up for, let's say, the end of that round, if not going down into the following round, a massive KO would have occurred throughout the duration of that fight. That just is what it is. I don't think there's any questions about that. That would have been the case in that fight. And so when I look back at this, Deontay Wilder has that win underneath his belt now. He's back in the win column. He had a solid performance. Now what's next for Deontay Wilder? Well, the time is ticking. Deontay Wilder is at a position of his career now where he only has X amount of time left to accomplish whatever he wants to accomplish. My personal thing is that I think he just needs to go get his last payday if that's really what he desires. It's not going to be a long run. He's 39 years old now. If I were him, I'm looking at the timetable right now. I'm saying, okay, we have to move fast to get a big fight. And the only big fight with a massive paycheck that could possibly make sense, there's actually 2 of them, but the first one I'll say is Anthony Joshua. That fight would make sense. I think Anthony Joshua would have his way with Deontay Wilder. I do not think it would be a competitive fight whatsoever. However, that is a fight that everyone in boxing wanted to go see for so many years. The hype could still be there. It's easy to promote it. It would be a mega fight if that is done at Tottenham Hotspur, at Wembley Stadium. If you have it in America, that could even happen there as well. That could be the case. However, the other big fight that you could possibly make, and I'm just going to throw it out there, I'm going to talk about him very shortly as well, and I saw some people rumoring this out there, is Jake Paul. I know a lot of people might look at me a little bit suspicious with that one, but listen, That would be a big payday. That seems like the type of fight Jake Paul would possibly entertain. I would think and would hope that Deontay Wilder would take care of business in that fight. But I'm just saying, the paycheck that Deontay Wilder could theoretically receive from Jake Paul and his camp to make that fight happen could make that an interesting option, because I just don't see Deontay Wilder in a position where he's going to become world champion again. That would be too far of a ladder to climb for himself. If you're Deontay Wilder, right now I think he's only got money on his mind. I think he wants to prove something, but I think at the end of the day, he's only remaining in the sport for money. He got into the sport for money. I don't think those priorities have changed too much at this point of his career. So when you look at Deontay Wilder, there's only a few options to go. Can you possibly go approach a massive fight in the near future? Whether that be an Anthony Joshua or even a Jake Paul. If that is not on the table and you are working your way up for that position, the most realistic options would be some of these guys. Derek Chisora. He is at a position in the state of his career right now where he's looking for one final dancing partner for his 50th and grand finale fight. That could be a fight that would make some sense. Not saying it's the best fight in the world, but two aging guys. Both guys could utilize that win. Obviously, for Chisora going out on top, for Deontay Wilder to continue to move up. Also, with Chisora, the UK thing would possibly make it a bigger appeal and set himself up for the fight with Anthony Joshua. Staying domestically in the UK, Dave Allen. That has been the fight that Dave Allen's called for. I don't think it's a good fight. I would have to imagine that Deontay Wilder should be able to take care of Dave Allen, who does not have a great resume. I love Dave Allen. He's a great fighter. He's a great person, I should say. But he's beat Johnny Fisher, a guy that I'm not too high on, and I don't think anybody's too high on. That could be a fight that would be a nice little stepping stone. Also grows your fan base in the UK to possibly set up that Anthony Joshua fight once again. And if those are not on the table, the other one that comes to mind, Francis Ngannou. That would be a very easy fight to promote. Two of the most powerful punchers of this generation going at it in the ring. I could easily see them doing that. Now, for Francis Ngannou's standpoint, there's a lot of questions as to what he's going to do next. He's with PFL. Is there a possibility that he goes and fights in the UFC? UFC is desperate for a heavyweight matchup for Tom Aspinall. You could see that happen, and he's also rumored that. If that is on the table for Francis Ngannou, then that fight doesn't make any sense. But Turki Al-Sheikh obviously knows both guys. If he can orchestrate that fight to happen, I could see that fight also being the case. So that's what I see for Deontay Wilder. I know there's a lot of things that he has to look at right now. The biggest thing for Deontay Wilder is the time is ticking. What are you going to do? I have to imagine he's going to be back in the ring before the year ends. I can't see him taking that much time off. He does not have a lot of time to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. He is aging and it's getting quick. He needs to go out there and accomplish whatever that is in a short amount of time. Right before Deontay Wilder, actually one more thing. Before I go any further, let me just say this about the card. When we go back to Friday night, I just want to make sure this is made clear. The BLK Prime, the whole entire card was just wild. People had to pay money for a card that never should have been paid anything for. And then on top of that, the stream was lagging the entire time. And then on top of that, the quality of fights stunk. And then the grand finale aspect is that you had Deontay Wilder, who was without a shadow of a doubt the main event. You were supposed to have a co-main event, which featured the likes of another man from Alabama and Dion Nicholson fighting Devontae Williams. And yet in that fight, it was expected that he was going to be the co-main event. But we fast forward to a situation where all of a sudden the co-main event scratched, Deontay Wilder's walking out, and then after everyone already has exited the stadium's pretty much empty, then you have what was going to be the co-main event essentially become the main event. That entire production behind what happened on Friday was absolutely horrible. And I think that people need to be held accountable for that. Charging people for the fight in the beginning was just outrageous. I already gave my thoughts on that last week. But on top of that, to have the quality, the production, what all happened there in Wichita, was just a horrible card. No other way to put it. Let's head into the card that was happening. It was right before Deontay Wilder walked out, but it was obviously out there in Canada. That's Christian Mbilli fighting Suzuki. WBC interim super middleweight title was on the line. Remember, this is a man that's gone up against Diego Pacheco. This is a man that's been battle tested against many other great fighters at 168. And he's never been a guy that was going to legitimately challenge those guys, but he made it competitive. For many of these other fights, this is a guy that's gone out there and had competitive fights. And then Christian Mbilli walks into that ring. A TKO. Round 1, 228 into the first round, and we have a potential one of the biggest knockouts we've seen this year. Listen, that was absolutely phenomenal, Christian Mbilli. I have said this for a long time now, and I think that what happened on Friday night solidified it, that Christian Mbilli is the number one threat to Canelo Alvarez at 168. I don't see anybody at 168 beating Canelo Alvarez right now, but if you were to rank the number one contender, that belongs to Christian Mbilli. This is a man that has great power. He's extremely skilled. He is a man that went out there and made a massive statement when he had that upset, when he had that KO. Listen, I thought this was going to be a fight where Christian Mbilli would win. Never questioned that in my life. But doing it in the fashion which he did in round one made me kind of turn my head a little bit and say, you know what? Christian Mbilli is that guy. He is going to be a threat. And we have to remember, when we look at 168, you have to utilize the lens of looking at this from another perspective. Canelo Alvarez is only going to be in the sport for X amount of time. We know he's fighting Bud Crawford in September. Then next year, he only has 2 fights left on his Riyadh season deal. That would be May and September once again, Cinco de Mayo weekend and Mexican Independence weekend. That's what we have in store for Canelo. After that, it's highly likely that Canelo Alvarez moves on from the sport. And when you anticipate those aspects, you have to realize that Christian Mbilli is in a position where he could easily become the next big name at 168. The door is wide open at 168. There is lots of moves, lots of things that can happen at 168, and Christian Mbilli has a chance to be that next star. It might have to wait a little bit because I don't think he's going to get a fight with Canelo Alvarez. But when you look at that next group, the guys that will take over post Canelo Alvarez, I would not think there's not too many guys out there that I would rather have than Christian Mbilli. So what do we do in the meantime, though? If Christian Mbilli cannot get the Canelo Alvarez fight, who do we possibly have? First and foremost, we need to see him on the undercard for Canelo Bud Crawford. That's a must, in my opinion. When you look at Christian Mbilli, so many people do not know who he is yet. True boxing fans do, but there's a large number of people that you can consider casual boxing fans or people outside the sport that don't know Christian Mbilli. And if he was given the opportunity to go out there and shine in front of a massive audience like the Bud Crawford Canelo Alvarez card, that would boost his name massively. And I believe that fans would fall in love with Christian Mbilli and maybe even possibly set himself up for the possible Canelo Alvarez fight. So he needs to be on the undercard, but who could he possibly fight? How about this option right now? Diego Pacheco. I know a lot of people said we want Diego Pacheco and Mbilli more recently. That was never going to happen. Pacheco is going to be fighting Trevor McCumbee, which is a solid step-up fight for Pacheco. But if he gets out of the Trevor McCumbee fight, which will not be an easy task for Diego Pacheco, let me make that very clear. If Pacheco does get out easily, that could set himself up for a fight with Christian Mbilli. Maybe not on that card, but by the end of the year. That would be a situation I'd like to see. If not for that, just get Christian Mbilli on that card and let's see him go out there and make a statement and possibly grow that brand and name. So Christian Mbilli, in my opinion, it comes down to either him or Floyd Schofield Jr. Those are the two guys that when I look at possible guys as the biggest winners of this past weekend, those are the two names. Let's head over to what happened on Saturday night, and we're looking in a fight with Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Can I be honest with you guys real quickly? I know I might catch some slack for this one. Jake Paul is getting way more hate than I think he truly deserves. I feel like there is currently a position around Jake Paul where people look at him and he's different. He does things his way. He doesn't do it the traditional way. And a lot of people are having their feathers ruffled a little bit with that one. And I just ask, why don't you just open your eyes and realize that, listen, maybe what he's doing is actually good for the sport of boxing. No, does he deserve to be ranked in the top 15? Absolutely not. He is nowhere near a world level contender. Anything, and of course, he's obviously not ready for no world championship fights. That is a disgrace, but you can't necessarily blame Jake Paul for getting those opportunities. You can blame the commissioning body that's going to set himself up for that, but you can't blame Jake Paul for that. When I look at Jake Paul, I realize this. You can say what you want to say about Jake Paul. Is what Jake Paul does, is it sometimes annoying? Is it sometimes different? Is it sometimes weird? Sure. But let's look at the greater picture right now. Boxing as a whole, if we go back 2 or 3 years ago, boxing was struggling drastically. It was in dire position, specifically in the United States of America. And in comes these celebrity boxers, specifically Jake Paul. And all I see right now is so many viewers coming out. I see record numbers of gates being set now at stadiums. I see some of the biggest fights, including what happened with Mike Tyson, happening last year. Yes, they're controversial. Yes, the Mike Tyson fight should never have happened. But what you cannot deny is the fact that there is a large audience now grasping onto boxing in some capacity. That right there is good for the sport. And you cannot deny that. The more eyes, the better. There's a common thread or a common quote, I should say, that people talk about. Good or bad publicity is still good publicity. When you get your name talked about, it's good. And when Jake Paul fights, all of a sudden, we have a large audience grasping towards boxing. So yes, go ahead and say what you want to say about Jake Paul, the way he handles business, what he does. But let's look at the large picture right now. More eyes are being drawn onto the sport than we have had in a while. And yes, he's done it unorganically. Yes, Jake Paul has gone about this in a very interesting manner. But what you cannot deny is the impact it is having for boxing. And I'm not going to sit up here and just hate on the guy. Yes, a lot of it's frustrating, some of the things he different does. But I'm looking at boxing as a whole, and that's the sport I like. And when I talk about a sport that I like, I want it to have more publicity. And when there's more publicity around the sport, that means there's going to be more money being poured into the sport. And that means that our fighters that we do like watching, that are doing it the way that's more organic and naturally, they're going to be rewarded larger. And that's something that I think we should grasp towards and gravitate at and say, you know what? Maybe this guy's not doing something too bad. He fights 1 to 3 times a year. Is one, 2, or 3 fights a year really going to make you that upset when he goes out there and does what he does? I don't think so. If you really don't want to watch it, then don't watch it. But what I noticed is that on Saturday night, it was one of the most trending things in the entire world. What I realized on Saturday night is that there was a ton of eyes gravitated towards boxing because Jake Paul was bigger than just boxing. He didn't do it the natural way. Jake Paul has gone about this entire sport and building himself up in a very unusual way through YouTube, through social media. He is the most followed active fighter currently in boxing. He brings in people from all around the world and all different avenues to a sport that they probably would not have watched had it not been for Jake Paul. And maybe not all of them, but there are a percentage of people that are tuning into these Jake Paul fights simply because of Jake Paul. But you know what it does? Is that for that small percentage, they like what they see. They like the sport. They like the undercard. And when they notice those factors, here's what I see happening. They end up saying, you know what? This sport's a little cool. Let's go invest in this. What's the next fight that's going to happen? Is this a fight that I could go watch? And that's how you build new boxing fans. And that would not happen if it were not for Jake Paul. When you have the current boxing format of these pay-per-views and these guys not wanting to fight big fights and so on and so forth, it's very difficult for the sport to get eyes onto the sport. It's very, very difficult. And that is what has come to be to harm the sport of boxing for so many years. And when Jake Paul comes to town, it is bringing new audiences in. No other way we're going to have that happen than with Jake Paul. Nobody has a bigger brand. Nobody has a bigger name. And so, yes, I get it. You can be frustrated with the techniques and the way he's handling business. You can be frustrated specifically with the ranking governing bodies who's going to go and give him the top 15 ranking. I've got no problem with you being upset about that. But what I'm not going to say is that he's bad for the sport. And when people continue to come out here and say Jake Paul is bad for the sport, Jake Paul is impacting it, he is one of the worst things that's happening in the sport, as Virgil Ortiz Jr. pointed out, I think that's absolutely irrational. I think that's absolutely a disgrace. How is that going to be that bad for boxing? Virgil Ortiz says he's one of, if not the worst, forget the exact quote, something along the lines of this is either the worst or one of the worst things that's happening in boxing. It's destroying the sport. Absolutely, it's not destroying the sport. It's not. There are so many other things happening in boxing right now that I would say is worse off for the sport of boxing than what's happening right now with what Jake Paul is doing. And that's a fact. And the other aspect I want to bring up real quickly is that when we look at Jake Paul, here's what I love most about it. Yes, the main event on Saturday night sucked. It did. I'm not going to come out here and just come out and say this was an amazing fight. No, the main event sucked. It was horrible. And I'm not even going to place the blame on Jake Paul for that. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. went out there and didn't want to throw a single punch. And he got beat up and so on and so forth. He wanted to wait until the final 2 rounds of the fight. It was a horrible main event. Unentertaining, not good fight whatsoever. Jake Paul did his job. He took care of business. He did it. But at the end of the day, it was a pathetic fight. It sucked. That was the main event. All right, end of discussion. Outside of the main event, the undercard for the Jake Paul card was incredible. And if you were to go out here and rank off, this is off the top of my mind, the top, let's say 10 or 15 fight cards of the year, it would possibly be in that top 10 to 15. It really would. You had an incredible card happen. There were multiple upsets. You had a last-second knockout to upset a guy by Julian Rodriguez. You had great fights happening throughout the entirety of this card. You had Holly Holm returning, and she had a great performance in her return back to boxing. There were so many great storylines and moments that happened in this card. It was a good night of boxing outside of the main event. And what's special about that is that those people that are tuning in to go watch Jake Paul, they also got to go learn about Zurdo Ramirez. They also got to go learn more about Holly Holm. They also got to learn about Raul Curiel. They also got to go learn about Julian Rodriguez, so on and so forth. And that, once again, is huge for the sport of boxing. Whether you like it or not, those guys would not have had the platform or the attention had it not been for Most Valuable Promotions and Jake Paul. They made those things happen, and I believe that people need to start giving credit to it. Stop just hating on the game. Stop hating on Jake Paul and realize the greater good that it's doing for the sport of boxing. That's my personal opinion on that. And I think that when we open up to that reality that maybe what's happening right now is not that bad for boxing, we'll start to come together and come together and embrace the situation. And realize, you know what? It's only a couple weekends of the year. Why not allow this to go forth and grow the sport whatever it's going to take? And if you really hate it that much, then just simply do not watch it. But you don't need to hate on the guy. I never understand people that want to hate on fighters. He's doing overall good things for the sport of boxing. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. With that being said, in that fight, though, Jake Paul, he came out and he did say that he wants to go out and say, okay, who do I want to fight next? And Jake Paul is one of a kind. This man lists guys all the way down at 135, all the way up to the heavyweight division. He calls out Gervonta Tank Davis. He calls out Anthony Joshua. He calls out Badou Jack. He calls out Zurdo Ramirez. And I think it's hilarious. You talk about all these different guys. Who else in boxing would come out and call out guys over 100 pounds difference between each other? It's unique. I don't know if he's going to get any of those fights. Obviously, the Tank Davis fight's very likely, I believe. But those are all on the table. I would only want to see possibly the Badou Jack or Zurdo Ramirez, since obviously could be an interesting fight from the standpoint of Jake Paul having to fight those guys. But that's besides the point. He's not ready for that anyways. I don't think he's going to have any of those fights happen. And if he fights Anthony Joshua, let me just say that's nights out for him. But on the greater perspective, I feel like the best fight to make right now that would make the most sense would be Tommy Fury the 2. Jake Paul lost the first fight. Why not go fight Tommy Fury again and see how that goes? You know, and I'm going to be honest with you guys right now. Jake Paul, for a guy that started boxing in his 20s, a guy that was a YouTuber and still does a lot of media work, that type of guy, where he's at right now, you can see the improvement. And he still has a lot of flaws. I made a post about that on X. I know a lot of people have differing opinions on that. When you put aside the hate, he has made improvement. You can't deny that Jake Paul has gotten better since he got into boxing. He is better. Are there flaws? Without a shadow of a doubt. Is he an elite world title type of contender or even a challenger? Absolutely not. But has he improved? Is he decent for a guy that only started boxing 4 or 5 years ago, whatever the case may be? Is he better? Yes. And I'm not going to take a shot at him and say he's not better. He has improved. And so who do I want to see him face? Tommy Fury 2. Go make that fight happen. It would be an interesting fight. Your revenge, the one loss you had, go make that fight happen. Makes perfect sense. Let's go into the co-main event for the Jake Paul card. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez fighting Junior Doritos. WBA, WBO cruiserweight titles were on the line. Zurdo Ramirez came out on top 115 to 112 on two of the scorecards, and the third scorecard was 117 to 110. Okay, let me make this very clear right now. Zurdo Ramirez is good. In my cruiserweight rankings, I would have Zurdo Ramirez at number 2 behind Jai Opetaia. But when I look at the gap, I look at Jai Opetaia right up here. He is number 1. It's not even getting all in the camera. Let's say he's right here, number 1. Tippy top of the screen. He is number 1. Zurdo Ramirez is like right here. I don't think there's any comparative between Jai Opetaia and Zurdo Ramirez. I think Jai Opetaia would wax Zurdo Ramirez. Zurdo Ramirez has moved up, now has 2 of the belts at cruiserweight. Good for him, impressive. He is a talented fighter, but he can't stop anybody. He looked horrible in the beginning portion of that fight. And you could argue that was the only reason that Zurdo took over the second half of that fight, simply because Doritos is older and could hardly move and was just becoming stagnant and was trying to go for low blows and was his mental aspect was completely out of the fight. That could be a large case. If you fight Jai Opetaia, if you're Zurdo Ramirez, that's not going to happen. Jai Opetaia will be fresh the entire duration of that fight. Jai Opetaia is not going to back down. And Zurdo Ramirez, he's yet to KO anybody at the cruiserweight division. You think he's going to go out there and KO Jai Opetaia? He's fought through broken jaws. He's had these different situations. He's not going to KO Jai Opetaia, so you'd have to win on points. And at the same time, Jai Opetaia has 10,000 times the amount of power that Zurdo Ramirez has. Jai Opetaia would likely get a KO in my opinion, and I don't think there's even a comparison between these two guys. Jai Opetaia is night and day different than Zurdo Ramirez, and that was clear here. As I said, Zurdo Ramirez is a good fighter. He is a world champion. I'll give him his flowers. He is talented. But I believe that Jai Bhatia is a guy that when he defeats Zurdo Ramirez will be on most people's pound for pound list. And if he's not, he's going to be just outside of it. There's a gap between Jai Bhatia and them. There's levels to the sport. And if they were to fight, and they better do it, that would be a very evident sign. I don't feel like it's even going to be a competitive fight. It's a fight that must be made, but it's a fight that I feel like the result has already been determined. Anything can happen in boxing. But if I were to give you guys my odds, Jai Bhatia has a massive odds. In my books, Zurdo Ramirez is a massive underdog in that fight. Absolutely massive. But, as I said, that fight must happen. There is no excuse. And I will also add this real quickly. It does baffle me a little bit. And I don't think the rumors have ever been confirmed. But if, in fact, Jai Bhatia was at the stadium at the Honda Center on Saturday night, I don't know why they didn't do a face-off. That should have happened. There's no reason if that were to be the case that they did not have a face-off. Because that fight must be made. If you're Turki Al-Sheikh, make the fight happen. If you're whoever needs to do it, somebody go make the fight happen. Nobody wants to see anything else in this division. The cruiserweight division is a very shallow division. The depth is not good. You have these top guys in Zurdo and Jai Bhatia, and I think there's even a gap between those two. Then you have Chris Bellum-Smith, Badou Jack, Noah McMillian, those type of guys, and they're just fine. But I don't really want to go out there and watch Badou Jack face Zurdo Ramirez or Jai Bhatia unless it were to obviously make it a undisputed fight. That would be the only benefit of that happening. But Zurdo or Jai Bhatia would wax either Badou Jack, Noah McMillian, any of those guys. And so when I look at the situation, I don't want to go out there and see anything else happen at the cruiserweight division except for Jai Bhatia, Zurdo Ramirez. Both guys just fought recently. You can make the fight happen. Timelines are perfectly equated out. Go make the fight happen before the end of the year. No excuses. That fight must happen, and it needs to happen. No ifs, ands, or buts. Stop ducking whoever's ducking. Make the fight happen. 3 belts will be on the line. Go get the job done. We need to see it. Stop messing around with these other waxed and washed up and horrible cruiserweight division fighters. I don't want to see any more of these Claudia Squeo fights against Jai Bhatia. I don't want to see any more of these Zurdo Ramirez guys fighting somebody that does not want to fight in that ring. Go make the fight happen. And please, Zurdo Ramirez, I know you want the money. If Turki Al-Sheikh needs to outbid you, I think he would because he does not like Jake Paul. Please don't take the Jake Paul fight. I know some people might want to go out there and say, hey, go destroy Jake Paul. Sure, yeah, we know that. Please just go make the Jai Bhatia Zurdo Ramirez fight. Please. If you're Turki Al-Sheikh, I beg you. I know you don't like Jake Paul. Do not let that fight happen. Make the unification between Zurdo Ramirez, Jai Bhatia happen now. I said I'm going to leave potentially the best for last. My 2 biggest winners of this past weekend, Floyd Schofield Jr. and obviously the man I talked about, Christian Mbilli. Both guys had the best, and I should say biggest statements made this weekend. Let me set this table real quickly for Floyd Schofield Jr. He had a lot of obstacles over the duration of the past calendar year. Whether that be due to fights not happening and falling apart, whether that be to illnesses, or that be to the bad performance he had in the ending parts of last year. What happened in Saudi Arabia, people can give their thoughts. It is what it is. It's in the past now. Obviously, I don't think that fight was ever supposed to happen. I don't know why we had Shakur Stevenson fighting him yet. He was not ready at that point in time. He couldn't fight. It is what it is. And he faced a lot of backlash. And here's the thing I've always said about this. I don't feel like Floyd Schofield Jr. is a bad guy at all. I feel like he's a good guy. I love to see him win. He seems like a good kid. I've had him on the show. I'd love to talk to him if he ever wants to come on, though. But when you talk about his senior, his dad, he runs his mouth a lot. And I feel like that has driven a lot of people against Floyd Schofield Jr. But we are in the sport of boxing. And as I said earlier, bad or good publicity is good publicity. The more your name is talked about, the better off you are as a brand and as an image and a name. So he's done a good job in that aspect. But the point is that we set themselves up for this fight where he was a necessity of having a statement win. Let's just put it that way. He had to get rid of all the negativity behind him. And he also had to back up all the talk that his dad did for him. And boy, did he do that. I knew that Floyd Schofield Jr., I figured Floyd Schofield Jr. would come out and win the fight. That was my prediction I talked to you guys about on Friday. But I did not think it was going to happen what we witnessed on Saturday night. That is mind-boggling. Floyd Schofield Jr., Tevin Farmer. Tevin Farmer is a man that went toe-to-toe with William Zepeda for 2 fights. Grueling, 24 rounds, action-packed fights. One of which Tevin Farmer probably won. The other one, obviously, he lost in that fight. Tevin Farmer could have returned too quickly. That could have been a case. But the point is he was in that ring. He's a former world champion. He is a great fighter. And when you set that stage up for those two guys, I thought Tevin Farmer was going to give Floyd Schofield Jr. a run for his money, at least to some extent. First round KO. He was flawless in that performance. Floyd Schofield Jr. took all the haters, all the negativity, all the backlash that he has gathered over the duration of the past calendar year, and he took that all out onto Tevin Farmer. And you could see that. The emotion was evident in Floyd Schofield Jr. You could see the power, the focus. He was literally flawless in that one round. He was dangerous in that one round. And I get it. One round. A lot of fighters are dangerous in round one. But what he showed in that round against an established veteran who has been in massive stages throughout his career, to go out there and perform in the way and manner in which he did in round one, to take out the former champion in the manner in which he did, showed a massive statement. People are so high on Williams Zepeda right now. I don't think he's that good, but some people are very, very high on him because of what he did with Tevin Farmer. And then this young 22-year-old walked up on in there and whooped Tevin Farmer up on out of there. Absolutely slaughtered him in one round. That is how you shut up the doubters. That is how you make a statement, and that is how you get your name back on the map and talked about as one of the most enticing and exciting fighters at 135. Because listen, I'm in a position right now, and I might get some backlash for this. I honestly would rather see Floyd Schofield Jr. fight Shakur Stevenson than Williams Zepeda. I don't think Zepeda versus Floyd or versus Shakur is going to be a good fight. I genuinely don't think that. I know some people want that, but when I look at the facts I've talked about before, that's not a good fight. And we kind of just witnessed that. Look what Floyd Schofield Jr. did to Tevin Farmer as opposed to them. And I get it. Styles make fights. All right. But when I look at this guy in Floyd Schofield Jr., he's 22 years old. He's only going to get better. And in all actuality, what I really want to see is the future. There's a man that's going to get a belt most likely on the undercard for for Canelo and Bud Crawford. That man's Abdullah Mason. He's a youngster too. When you look at 135, we have two young rising stars. And we're in the midst of a generation right now, 135, where guys don't want to fight each other. Remember those two young guys, Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis, that we've always wanted to see fight? There were two superstars. Yeah, that fight has never happened. I think those two guys, and Abdullah Mason and Floyd Schofield Jr., will make that fight happen when the time is right. I would have loved to have seen it right now, but the time will have to dwell a little bit longer. And when both those guys get a belt, it could be scary things. Here's what's next for Floyd Schofield Jr. The winner of Shakur Stevenson, Williams Zepeda. That would make a lot of sense. I could see that happening. But how about Schofield versus Lucas Body? That could also be a fight that makes a lot of sense for the WBA interim, or you go all the way for a world title shot against Raymond Martaya. That would make a lot of sense as well. The fact of the matter is this. Floyd Schofield Jr., he showed that he's that guy. He showed that, listen, people were hating on him, but he's ready to arrive, and he's ready to be that star on the biggest stage right now. Tevin Farmer, though, I do want to spend a couple of seconds on him real quickly. I like Tevin Farmer. What he's done in the sport has been phenomenal. He became a world champion. He's had some grueling fights. He is a fun fighter to watch. He probably took this fight way on too much of a short notice. I think that he's fought a lot of grueling fights. To come back on 3 months' notice to go fight Floyd Schofield Jr. probably was not the wise decision at his age, but he's now lost a lot of fights recently. He's now had many grueling fights. This is a devastating KO. If I'm Tevin Farmer, I'm taking at least a year off, and potentially I'm done with boxing. I don't see where he goes from here. He's had a lot of tough fights. He's had a lot of brutal losses, and this is no different. If I'm Tevin Farmer, I'm looking at the stage right now. It's time to let the young guys take over and go out of this sport with everything still intact, as healthy as you can be. You've accomplished great things. You still have a great career outside of boxing. Go out of the sport while you still can. That's my personal opinion. I would love to see him back in the ring. And if he comes back, I'd be all for it. I'm not saying he cannot be competitive anymore. But what I am saying is that he's reached a point where he's had so many losses, so much brutal, damage taken off from these fights, that it might be time to reconsider what you want to do with your life right now. But ultimately, that decision must come up to him. I'm just going to round off some of the other fights that went down this weekend because a lot of fights happened. Let's get right to it. Bradley Rhea, potential domestic UK fight of the year, fought Shotgun Pitters in a thrilling 12-round war for the vacant European title, where Bradley Rhea came out on top, 115 to 114 on two of the scorecards, and the third one was 115 113. Absolutely amazing fight. Will be interesting to see where those guys go from here. Then Dion Nicholson, I said in the very interesting, what was supposed to be co-main for Deontay Wilder, became essentially the main event. He had a great performance. 4th round KO on that one. Stephen Butler, 4th round KO against Jose de Jesus Macias. Heavyweight division. Makumoto, KO in round 1 against Ricardo Brown. That was an incredible KO. Make sure you go check that out if you have not already. Then, upcoming prospect Wilkins Matu had a KO in the 3rd round and against McDonald. Super lightweight division, Johan Orborio, possibly one of the most devastating KOs of the weekend. He had a round 1 KO. He's an up-and-coming prospect as well. Christopher Guerrero, TKO in round 10 against Sandy Masood. Then Sean McComb made his return after a year and a half off out of the sport. He defeated Alexis Torres by .6054 across the board. Raul Curiel, let me take a moment on this guy. An incredible fighter, very entertaining. He had a great performance on the Jake Paul undercard as well. He defeated Victor Escuela Rodriguez via 4th round KO. He broke down his opponent throughout that fight, broke his nose. He was in a position he was set to go out and take advantage. If he did so, he did just that. Dominant performance there, and it sets himself up now for a great position. This is a man that has a chance to have a big fight next. I personally think with the WBAs, which is now aligned for, this was a title eliminating fight. Guiasov versus Curiel, WBA interim championship. That makes the most sense. You also do have Rolly Romero in the picture there. I don't think Rolly Romero takes that fight, but that is hypothetically in the picture with Rolly Romero currently being the only man holding a WBA belt since obviously Boots Ennis moved on from the division. One of the biggest upsets of the weekend. Julian Rodriguez defeats Avius Griffin via 10th round KO. This was incredible. This fight was up and down. There was moments of great action, some moments of very boring natures. Avius Griffin, he was a man that was ranked in the top 15. He was a man that was projected and talked about by MVP Promotions as a next rising star of the promotion. He was talked about and very much so hyped up, and he's a solid fighter. There's a lot of flaws though, but he's a solid fighter. He goes down this fight, and when we look back at the scorecards, they were tied. It was going to be a situation where Julian Rodriguez was going to have to win. I think that's baffling. Julian Rodriguez should have had the win in the bag regardless of what happened in the 10th round, but it is what it is. Julian Rodriguez goes out there and has a last-second KO against Avius Griffin. And when we look at hindsight, not only was the KO spectacular, last-second, buzz-beating type KO, final seconds of the fight, incredible, brutal knockout. But on top of that, knowing now what we know, that Julian Rodriguez needed that KO to win, it makes that even more remarkable. That was one of the best things you're going to see this year. Absolutely amazing fight right there. And on top of that, it's now been announced that Julian Rodriguez has now signed with Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh's TKO Boxing. He's going to be a guy to keep you guys' eyes on. Heavyweight division, Joshua Edwards, Dominic Hardy via 1st round KO. I've been very vocal about the American heavyweight issue right now. It is bad. We do not have a lot of young rising stars. But what I will say is this. This might be the guy. I'm not going to get too bold right now. He's very, very young. Just was in the Olympics, almost 1 year ago now. But Joshua Edwards is a guy that I'm keeping my eye on. We might just have a star in the making for the heavyweight division. And at the bare minimum, I feel comfortable saying this. Joshua Edwards is the next heavyweight star in America. I'm confident saying that. The way he has looked so far to this point in his career has been amazing. He is very technically sound. He has great power. This is a guy, albeit it is very early to say this, he is a guy that I'm keeping my eye on. He might just be that next American heavyweight star. He had a great performance once again. Then, Michael Sislak beats up, drops, and stops Jean Pascal in round 4, and Laval to claim the vacant interim WBC cruiserweight title. Dominant performance there. Absolutely beat up Jean Pascal. That was talked about as Jean Pascal being the favorite to win that fight. But I did predict that Sisak will be the guy that comes out on top in an upset. That's what happened. I didn't think it was going to be that dominant, but he gave a beating to Jean Pascal. And last but most certainly not least, Patrice Volney won by unanimous decision, 80-72 on 2 of the scorecards. One of the other ones was 79-73 over Kaluta. Good performance by him. Remember, Patrice Volney fought earlier this year against Emma Williams, the main event out there in Orlando. He's a man that's ranked in the top 15 of the IBF, I believe. So he's a guy to keep your eye on as well as he continues to work his way back up. I will be on a very short commercial break, and I'll come right back to wrap up today's show. If there are any comments, any discussion points, make sure to leave that in the chat right now, and I'll address them right when I return from this break. Also, do not forget to go vote. Hashtag whichever one of the guys that you think had the best performance of the week. Put that right now. I'll put it back on the screen real quick for you guys. Here we go. Pull that up for you guys. Make sure to go out there and vote. If you guys have whoever you guys think was the top performer of this weekend, go put it in the comment section, hashtag it, or click the link attached in the YouTube chat, and you guys can go vote that way as well. So that you guys can let me know who the top performer of this weekend was. With that being said, I'm going to go on a very short break, and I will be returning back to the show to talk boxing topics in just about 2 or 3 minutes. I'll see you guys very shortly. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. As I said before I left the break, if you guys want to go hop in to do the poll, you guys can go add that in right now. Go set your votes for who has the top performances of the week. That is down the bottom for you guys to see what the results are at this point in time. Also, any comments, chats, whatever you guys want to discuss today on the rest of today's show, make sure to leave that in the chat as well, and I'll be addressing that. Your comment should pull up on the screen as well when it does happen. With that being said, though, let's hop into some other concepts I want to get into before we wrap up today's show. How else do I start off with anything other than the fight alerts that have been coming out now? First and foremost, the fight that was talked about, I think 2 or 3 times last week as it was getting rumored about, Brian Norman Jr., the man coming off the KO of the year out in there in Japan against Shin Sasaki, the world champion, one of the youngest world champion of the world right now, will be defending his belt against Devin Haney for the WBO welterweight title in November in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Turkey Al-Sheikh has now announced it. That is going to be a massive fight. I know a lot of people out there were saying all these different things about Devin Haney. I'm going to make this clear one more time. Give props to Devin Haney what props are due. Get rid of the hating nature. Too many people hate too many fighters. Stop hating on these guys. If you don't like the way he fights, fine. So be it. Don't watch him. If you're going to go out there and hate on Devin Haney for some reason, go ahead. I mean, that's just ridiculous, but you do you. But what I'm going to say is the facts right now. You can't hate on Devin Haney for the way that he takes fights. I don't know if there's another man in boxing right now. No. That will take whatever fight is presented to him. Devin Haney will always fight the best of the best. If it makes sense financially, he's taking the fight. And you have to give props to him for that. There are so many guys in boxing right now that are ducking and ducking and ducking some more. We have so many guys that don't want to take these fights. Devin Haney's over here, and he provided you guys with a hit list of who he wanted to go take out. He went down that list. Teofimo Lopez was right there up on the top. Oh, no, that man decided to duck him. They tried getting the deal done, but Teo ducked him. And then you go down the list. Drum Boots Ennis moved up to weight classes. That was off the table then. You just look all these different guys. Devin Haney wanted to make those fights happen. But then they all said no. And he comes to his fifth option. Brian Norman Jr., fight is booked. It is done. Major props to Brian Norman Jr. for taking the fight, and major props to Devin Haney for never wanting to back down and fighting the best of the best no matter what. This will be a massive fight. I know a lot of fans out there are going to go out there and say, hey, guess what? We want this fight to happen in America. Well, guess what? It's happening anyways. Go enjoy the fight in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Another fight. The massive rematch of Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, number 2, will take place September 20th in London. The stadium has not yet been announced, but it will be happening on September 20th. Riyadh season card will be promoted by Sela, Matchroom, and Boxer. Same clauses as last time. There was a large amount of debate and speculation. Will they still have the rehydration clause in place after what it did to Chris Eubank Jr.? The answer is yes. So that fight will be happening. I've always said this was going to happen. There was no doubt about it when you had the fight of the year that went down between these two guys and the amount of attention and money that was going to be made in this rematch. There was no chance that fight did not happen. This was going to be bound to happen, and it's done. And I feel like for fans, it should be another great fight. Let's go enjoy it. And then right after that happens, both guys need to go their separate weights. Chris Eubank Jr. needs to permanently move himself up to 168. Conor Benn can decide between 147, 152, whatever the case may be. And at that point in time, 154, sorry. And at that point in time, they can go make their own legacies. Chris Eubank Jr. will probably fight Canelo Alvarez if he goes out there and beats Conor Benn once again, as expected. And I do feel like Canelo Alvarez would be a realistic opportunity at Wembley Stadium for May 5th. That's my personal, or Cinco de Mayo weekend. That's my personal guess there. We'll see what happens. Conor Benn, you have so many fights to make at 154. You have Drum Boots Ennis. You have Virgil Ortiz. Maybe even Terrence Bud Crawford. You have Bakum Murtazavaliev. You have name after name after name. Go make those big fights happen. That's the fight that's now been announced. And then the final thing that I feel like we have to get into. Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia is coming off an abysmal performance against Raul Romero, where he could have been the WBA regular champion right now, but he's not. Ryan Garcia was supposed to go have this rematch against Devin Haney, and now he's not. Ryan Garcia had all those situations, and then he got hurt and is going to rehab for an extensive period of time again. Ryan Garcia is having all this happen to him right on the back tail end of being suspended for an entire year. It's been a rough run. You know, he was on the top of the world up until the test results came out and found out he was doing PEDs prior to Devin Haney's fight. And he is skilled, but it makes you question a lot of what's happening. And we do know that Ryan Garcia has some stuff up here, not always in order. And the truth is that when it comes to what he said about Golden Boy promotions during the duration of the fight on Saturday, you wonder. Other guys have had problems with Golden Boy before. It's not a first. So it could seriously be an issue. Ryan Garcia has had this happen before, but at the very same time, the timing of it just seemed odd. And I'm sure there's a reasoning behind it, but still, Ryan Garcia is not in a position right now to be demanding too many things. If he's mad at Oscar De La Hoya for something involving his career, that's can in large part be placed upon the blame can be placed upon Ryan Garcia. And that's just a fact. Had Ryan Garcia beat and defeated Rolly Romero when they fought a couple months ago, he would not be in this position. But he now is. And so for those who have not seen the tweet, he goes out there and says F Golden Boy Promotions. Not the type of tweet you probably would want to send out there if you're talking to your promoter. But Ryan Garcia just had to go forth with that. And so the biggest and the first thing that comes to my mind is this. He needs help again. And I feel like we're at a point where Ryan Garcia, if this is mentally, he's okay and he's thinking clear and he just really wants out of this, then fine. I don't know what to say. But I just hope he's doing all right. Because beyond boxing, everything else, this is bigger than boxing. If he's not right up here, then boxing does not matter in my opinion. He needs to get right up there. And that's a fact of the matter. He needs to change himself and get better, get on track. Because if he's not right up here anyways, what he does in the ring is never going to matter. He's never going to be productive. He's never going to accomplish great things in the ring if he's not squared away up top. And so that's what he's got to focus in on right now. If you're Ryan Garcia, hopefully things work out. And listen, if this partnership continues to not work out and there continues to be so much anger based upon this relationship between Ryan Garcia and Golden Boy, then let's make the move easy. Move on. Both parties can move on. Ryan Garcia is no longer the hot commodity that he was just about a few months ago. He can rebuild himself. He has the ability and potential to do so, but he's not the hot commodity that he once was. And for Ryan Garcia, he wants out. So if it makes sense to find some form of settlement to get this drama away from each other, then do so. There's no point continuing this if this is the situation they're at. But beyond it all, though, as I've said, Ryan Garcia is hopefully, I hope and pray that he can get himself right up top. Because if it's not right up there, nothing else will ever end up mattering. With that being said, though, I'm going to conclude today's show. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in to today's show. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of you guys Monday. May God bless you guys all. I'll be back on tomorrow night, same time, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I have an interview tomorrow on tomorrow's show. I'll announce who it is in a few hours. But with that being said, may God bless you guys all. Hope you guys have a fantastically blessed remainder of you guys' night. And until I see you guys tomorrow, have a blessed rest of that time as well. I will see you guys back on the show set tomorrow, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. May God bless you guys all. SchuZ out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.